Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is your quiz review for your lines and angles quiz. Now remember, we've got 4 terms we have to remember on this quiz. We've been studying this for the last few days. The first terms we started on last week. So the first term is parallel lines, okay? So parallel lines, they're 2 or 3 or 15 lines, doesn't matter, could be a whole bunch of them. They're going in exactly the same direction, right? Think of railway tracks. They're always exactly the same distance apart. They're never going to cross over each other, okay? So if they're on the same plane or flat surface, that means doesn't matter how far forward they go, they are never ever going to intersect or cross over each other. In this example here on the screen, you can see if you were to measure these on the left and say they were 4 centimeters apart, and then you measured them on the right, they would still be 4 centimeters apart, okay? Always exactly the same distance apart. We show that they're parallel by putting little arrows on there, okay? Our second term here is what we call perpendicular lines. Now, perpendicular lines are lines that do intersect specifically at a right angle. So that can end up looking like a T, or it can end up looking kind of like an L, okay? Perpendicular lines, when we talk about this right angle, there's a lot of different words for this. We mean a 90-degree angle. We call it a right angle, a square angle, a perpendicular angle, or a 90-degree angle, okay? Perpendicular is the new vocabulary word you have to remember with regards to this. If something is perpendicular in a geometric drawing, we're going to put that little square there in the corner to indicate that yes, this is a 90-degree angle, it is perpendicular. By the way, if you've got lines crossing over like this, so that there's 4 angles formed, if one of those angles is 90 degrees, so are all the others, okay? They have to be. It's just the way it works. All right, so that's perpendicular. So we got parallel lines and we got perpendicular lines, right, at a 90-degree angle. Our third term, which we went over a couple of classes back, is the perpendicular bisector. So the word perpendicular, you guys already knew. Bisector is a new term. It means that you cut something into 2 equal pieces, okay? You cut it in half perfectly. Now remember that word bi, it means 2, right? Like bicycle, and sect means to cut something up or section it. So that's where that cutting into 2 pieces comes from. And then of course, perpendicular still means at a 90-degree angle. So a perpendicular bisector is a line that cuts another line in half at that 90-degree angle. And I've got 2 examples here, 2 drawings of how this works. In our first drawing, line FI is a perpendicular bisector for line SH. Okay, so what that means is, first of all, that they cross at a 90-degree angle. They're perpendicular. Second, it means that this distance here from S into the middle is equal to the distance from the middle to H. So if, for example, the distance from S to H was 30 centimeters, then that means the distance from S to the middle will be half of that, right? Well, how do you get half? You divide by 2. So 30 divided by 2 is 15. So that should be 15. And then the distance from the middle over to H, that's going to be 15 centimeters as well. Okay. Then over here on the left, these will show up on your test sometimes. This is what a perpendicular bisector looks like. If you use a compass to draw one, the curved lines are from the compass, but the bisector itself is the straight line that passes through them. Okay, so line AM is equal to line MB, and these 2 cross at a perfect 90-degree angle as well. So we can say that this line here, which looks like it's labeled with a lowercase m, I don't know, a little weird, it's a perpendicular bisector for line AB. Okay, so we had parallel lines, we had perpendicular lines, we got the perpendicular bisector. Next up, we have angle bisectors, okay? So that word bisector means exactly the same thing here. You're going to cut this thing in half. Well, what are we cutting in half? An angle, okay? So when we cut angles in half, we don't measure angles with centimeters. We measure them in what's called degrees, that little circle thing that comes after. So there's a diagram here, angle XYZ is 72 degrees, and then this line here was drawn on W, and so line YW is a bisector for that angle XYZ. Now, as you can see, it cuts it perfectly in half. So if you take 72 and you divide it by 2, you end up with 36. So each of those angles is 36. And there is one question on your test that's like this. If we were to bisect this again, okay, then we'd take one of these and we would cut that in half. Okay, and then in order to find that out, you'd take that 36 and divide it by 2. You'd end up with 18. Okay. Here's another drawing of an angle bisector. You can tell probably from looking at it that it's halfway, but just so you know, these curvy things, this is what you get, again, if you use a compass to draw an angle bisector. So just want you to be aware of the visual there. So your test is out of, I believe, 19 marks. Okay, let me double check here. 19 marks. There are two true-false questions. There is a whole schmozzle of multiple choice questions. Okay, there are no word problems. There are no long answers. So it shouldn't be terrible. It looks big, but that's because of all the pictures. Have a good day, guys. Best of luck on your test.